what counts as blasphemy in Islam?
Well, blasphemy in Islam, offering insult to God, to the Prophet Muhammad, or to any part of the divine revelation, is a crime in Islamic religious law, fully comparable to blasphemy. In the Christian tradition, blasphemy properly denotes mockery or lèse-majesté, I would say, of God. There is no exact equivalent to blasphemy in the Islamic tradition. Although the Quranic phrase, word of infidelity, kalimatul kufr, as it says, comes fairly close. In the history of Abrahamic faith, all the prophets had been reviled and insulted God and his message. It also happened with Prophet Muhammad. They did not, but those prophets did not retaliate, rather showed resilience for conveying the divine message. In contrast, Muslim rulers in the later years of history and recent time, over 30 Muslim countries have enacted their own blasphemy laws vis-a-vis the rise in free speech to suit their own needs, more or less, or to suppress minorities in some cases. So in Canada, there is blasphemy laws here too.
So before we get to the Canada part, he ignores something. Muhammad gave the order to murder poets, especially Asma bint Marwan and two other people who did criticize him. This is documented in the first ever seerah written about Muhammad, and it's in biographies, even other biographies, that he had poets ordered to be killed.
Not really well sort of publicized.
So he mentions Canada's blasphemy laws here.
I was just going to say, I mean, we've talked about this a bit between ourselves anyway, but I mean, essentially, it's another untruth. Canada does not have a blasphemy law. Now, it did used to some years ago, and the depth of that law is questionable. It was on the books between 1892 up until it was repealed in 2018, but it was a blasphemous libel law, and it essentially was one of these laws that was unenforceable because of Canada's kind of strong constitutional tradition. There was an example, for example, when Monty Python's Life of Brian came out in the late 70s, there was a priest in Canada who tried to get it banned based on the blasphemy law that that Canada used to have, and the Ontario's Attorney General refused to prosecute. So he's wrong in terms of Canada doesn't actually have a blasphemy law because it was repealed a few years ago, but also when it did have one, it was essentially an unenforceable law. It was one of those kind of relic laws from the 19th century.
What was the law? Can you can you tell me what was the law exactly?
I can quote it. It's according to Section 296 of the Criminal Code.
Whoa, 296?
Yeah.
Sounds a bit like 295, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Now, everyone who publishes a blasphemous libel, a libel means, just a falsehood. A libel has to be false, information that's false, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. So it's blasphemous libel. Pay attention to the terms. This is very different from religious blasphemy. And even then, it has been repelled since, 2017 or 2018. And even there's plenty of articles that in 2018, we have repelled it, which it has no place in the country. We finally repelled it in 2018. So
did you say the punishment is only 2 years imprisonment?
That's it.
And he's actually comparing that to the death penalty.
No. Well, this is the problem. This is the problem, isn't it? Because first of all, it's a whataboutism, because he's basically trying to justify blasphemy laws under Islam by saying that Canada has one. So first of all, it's not true because it was repealed. Secondly, it was basically unenforceable. And thirdly, it would have been a sort of a limited prison sentence compared to death. So there's no comparison between it. So it's kind of a lie of omission on 3 different levels, I think. So
yeah, I mean, I was actually scared for a bit because I thought Canada too had a death penalty, and especially when you said 296. When you said 296, you really scared me because that's like 295. You know what I'm talking about, yeah.
And this law has not resulted in a conviction since 1935. So nobody has been there has been no conviction. Pre-1935, Canada was very different.
I was 12 in 1935.
You're very well preserved.
So this was way before, like, even the Second World War. So, you know,
yeah, I remember.
Go away? Did the video just go away? 1 second. Let me just.
Oh no, not more technical trouble.
Yeah.
I want to hear more of the lies. I mean, views of the Imam.
Share screen. Yeah, that was just a technical issue. Leap of faith. There we go. I think we are at the part of. Okay, let's play this.
Cool.
How far should we go in enforcing blasphemy law?
I cannot answer that question. That is up to the country,
the
justice system, where the laws exist.
And my next question we have is, if someone
I'd just like to say, yeah, he can't answer that question. He doesn't fucking want to answer that question. That's what it really means.
Yeah,
exactly. What if I say Saudi Arabia does this? His response would be, no, they're not a true Islamic state. And yet now he says, well, it's not my job to decide that. It's the job of the state to decide that.
Yeah.
Make up your mind, man.
All right, let's. I asked the question about apostasy. What is the procedure?
So there's no formal procedure. Question that is up to the country, justice system, where the laws exist.
And my next question we have is, if someone does not want to be a Muslim anymore, what is the procedure?
So there's no formal procedure. He or she can free to renounce Islam in his own heart, just renounce his own faith or her faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right, the next question.
Anything that happens after that, he or she will have to face the society.
Oh my God. See, again, that is so sinister the way he said that. It's kind of like, oh no, all they've got to do is just renounce their faith. But the consequences, they better start fucking running. I mean, that sounds like what he's saying. He's like, they're going to have to face the society with the consequences of them renouncing their faith. So therefore, if you're in Pakistan, you're going to face the consequences of the mob. I mean, that's
you brought it upon yourself. You didn't deserve it, but you brought it upon yourself.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like, no, you're free to leave, but you know, you better start running real fast because there'll be consequences for it from the society. I mean, it's mafioso.
All right, so let's continue. What ramifications would they face with the community should they decide to leave?
The community cannot be a judge to do any harm to the person.
Okay.
Yeah, individual has no justice in their hands. It all depends on the person, how that person can face the community's culture and tribal customs for doing so.
So he contradicts himself.
Tribal customs you got to face now? I thought, you know, it wasn't about culture, it was about religion. And now he's saying you have to face the tribal customs. So they'll put you in a cooking pot and you just have to accept it? I mean, what the hell is he talking about?
Look, he's going around in a loop now because he just said, well, individuals don't have the right to take the law in their own hand. A minute ago, he said that, you know, sorry, I think it slipped my mind now. But look, all of this is a loop. Individuals don't have the right to enforce a law. But, you know, all of the stuff that Saudi Arabia and Iran and Afghanistan and Somalia and all of those states are doing. So do they have a right to do it? I mean, who does have the right, man? I mean, will you tell us once?
No, the one that has a right, it's the Islamic State, which apparently you don't have to live in. They're the ones who have the right.
Yeah, but there is no Islamic State, remember?
Yeah, there's no Islamic State, but except the one that kills you for leaving a religion.
Yeah, that's where I was also thinking, such bullshit. At that moment, I was thinking, such bullshit. What is the Islamic opinion of women?
Yes, this is the most commonly talked about because the rights of women in Islam are more than Christianity or Judaism. You could compare.
Lies.
Let's let him prove it. He's about to prove it. This guy's a clever man. Let's let him prove it.
This is a fairly long answer I might give. Is that the status of women in Islam is very much misunderstood because of the dress code and the news of oppression in the Muslim countries and societies. One thing you must note that there are no Muslim countries governed by Islamic law. As such, complete Islam.
Come on.
I mean,
there's Iran, Saudi Arabia. There's even a province in Nigeria. There's a province in Indonesia, I believe. And, you know, certain parts of Islamic code are in Pakistan, like in some parts. And you know,
there are literally traces of Islamic law in all the Muslim states, all 57.
Yeah. So there are traces of this, and Brunei as well. Brunei, when it was enforcing those Islamic laws, so it's like, what the heck is this guy about? Anyway, let's continue.
Just take portions of it. Islam is the state religion in most of the Middle Eastern countries and North Africa and Malaysia and Indonesia, but they don't apply all the Islamic rules. They just apply part of it. For example, Saudi Arabia did not allow women to drive until just last year.
Yes.
There's nothing in Islam prohibiting women to drive.
So
these are all.
Yeah, I wonder why. Has it got anything to do with that? You could only drive a fucking horse and cart at the time. I mean, there was no cars around, so of course there's not going to be anything in the Quran or in the Hadiths about driving. But is that really the key point? I mean, it's kind of a fringe issue when it comes to women's rights.
Even if Saudi Arabia was not implementing 100% of Sharia, like he says, it was implementing about 90% of it, right? So what, does the magic not work unless you do 100%? If they're doing 90%, that should count for something, man. But they're not applying Sharia.
It's not like if you applied that last 10%, it would make all the oppression in the other 90% suddenly disappear. It would just add another 10% on. It would just make it worse, surely.
Yeah, now the magic only works when you do it 100. Like if you do 99, it's not going to work. You do 100, then, you know, abracadabra. That's when the magic is going to work.
Yeah, like 90% is poison, but then if you 100%, you've got the antidote there, and then everything's perfect.
Yeah, 99.9% is poison too, I bet you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the only one who can do it 100% correct is Muhammad. So
yeah,
it's good.
All right, let's continue what he says.
Front things that people see, the Afghanistan now, it says girls cannot go to school. The Taliban in earlier years that they ruled. There is in Prophet Muhammad said, it's not acquiring knowledge, and he said knowledge, not just Islamic knowledge. It's compulsory on men and women. He used both words, men and women.
Yeah, citation.
Where's the quote? Yeah.
And as for the Afghanistan thing that he was saying that the Taliban government in Afghanistan is not allowing women to, you know, girls to get their education. Well, hang on. I remember fucking thousands of people were celebrating when Taliban took over because they said now they're going to get Islamic law. I mean, I remember people were actually mocking me for, you know, saying that Taliban is not Islamic. They would know, like Muslim people were mocking me for saying that. They were saying, well, dude, you don't understand what Islam is. This is the real Islam, and it's coming to, and, you know, now, you know, because America's been defeated and, you know, all of those evil people, they've been defeated. Afghanistan is now going to be one of the happiest countries in the world. And now, only a few months down the road, they've disowned them.
Country that they knew. So he says getting knowledge for anybody, for that matter. He didn't say that only men can acquire knowledge. No. So this is something that all this is because of the patriarchal society or the history of patriarchal society that we have, the nature of societies in Asia, Africa, Middle East, and even to this day. Canada did not recognize women until 1929 as a person. Do you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, they couldn't take elected office here in Canada or even go to a medical school or other universities. It was Alberta 5 women that spearheaded the campaign that really made women recognized as a person in 1929. And
all right, can we stop it there, Moose? Just let's just nip this in the bud because it's really irritating. The language he employs there to say that women were not recognized as people in Canada until 1929. That is really loaded. I mean, technically it's correct, but what it's referring to is there was a law set out which went back to the 19th century again that essentially
1867.
1867.
The North America British Act. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and it essentially sets out the powers and responsibilities of the provinces of the federal government. And it's a peculiar wording of the act that when it's referring to persons within it or person, it uses the word he when it's describing a person. And essentially what happened was the unscrupulous types exploited that unusual wording to say that in certain ways women would not be considered as a person because it has the word he there, and it was used as a way through a really dodgy legal loophole to try and prevent women from taking political office. And because of this strange way that this law was written, it had to be countered with a new piece of legislation in the 1920s, which sort of cancelled it out. So the way he's saying it is if the women were basically not seen as real people until the 20s, that they akin to slaves or cattle. That's the way it comes across if you sort of take what he says literally. Whereas when you actually look at what it was just a peculiar wording of an obscure law back in the 19th century that had to be corrected, and it certainly was exploited as a loophole to oppress women in terms of taking political office. So, you know, it's kind of a shameful episode for Canada, you could argue, but it's nowhere near as bad as the way he implies with that language, to almost imply that women in Canada basically were not recognized as people with rights, you know, essentially were cattle up until 1929. And I think he's doing it to try again to reflect onto Islam and make Islam look oh so progressive in comparison, and to cover up essentially all the problems and abuses against women within Islam.
Yeah, and even if that is true, and I'm sure it's partially true, but shall we hold Islam to the same standard now? Shall we talk about how women were doing in the Muslim world before the 19th century or whatever?
Well, it would be nice, but don't think we get much into it with the Imam here, but we'll see.
And there's a lot more. There's slavery, and there's there's concubinage, and there's all kinds of crazy shit. Shall we ask you about that too then?
Yeah, and what I actually noticed, I think thinking clearly, and this was in Supreme Court decided in 1928 that they would be qualified to run for office, but it says here in the history of Canada in 1884, the Married Women's Property Act, which meant that married women had the same legal rights as men and can purchase property in 1884 in Canada. Let's continue.
Of five Muslim women that helped establish the first Muslim mosque in Edmonton in 1938. They raised the funds to get the historic masjid in Edmonton, 1930, Al Rashid Mosque, which is now a heritage site. So many countries, they enact their own laws to protect this patriarchy that we have inherited. There is no Islamic state as such today, as I said. While in the eyes of God, both genders are equal as human beings. So their worship is the same. Value of their worship and devotion is.
But there are more women in hell.
Lies.
And if Muhammad would have commanded women to prostrate to their husbands, women are supposed to. There's a concept of marital rape in Islam still to this day.
I have to say as well, you can tell from the language that when he says, you know, God sees men and women as equal, and then 2 seconds later he has to qualify it as human beings. So therefore what he's saying is they're not equal in terms of their rights as citizens in front of the law. Otherwise you wouldn't need that little qualifier at the end. It's the exact same when we went through the charter, the UN Charter of Human Rights, compared it to the Islamic version that came out in 1990, and they do the same thing where they say men and women are equal in dignity. There's always this little add-on that basically says they're equal but not really equal, because we'll just give some add-on at the end that obscures the fact that they don't have actual equal rights as citizens, and they never will under Islam. And it just shows again in this kind of funny language he uses.